Hey, everybody, this is your boy John, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about best costumes of all time, superhero mostly, you know, just the way we are. But let's get geeky. Hey, everybody, this is your boy John, and as always, you're going to be one of the hosts, and with me is Matt.
What's up, everybody?
But I will say this real quick. I want you guys to always know that we love the support and the following. But again, we'd like you to click subscribe, follow, share, anything that you can get the word out, man, because I'm telling you, me and Matt have a very tight social group and there ain't that many people in it. All right. So the point is, we need you to help us out. All right. Just like always. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about real quick is Matt's been doing a lot of salty tips, not tits, guys. Okay. I don't want you to think tits, but tips. All right. So he's been doing a lot of this on TikTok. And I know he's been trying to get some following on that, but we've decided that he's going to start doing that now on the podcast more and more. And eventually I'm going to come up with some kind of, maybe skit of my own. I don't know yet. I haven't thought that far because it's pretty difficult. But anyways, we're going to let Matt here, introduce some of his salty tips.
All right. Welcome to Matt's Salty Tips. I got tip number 24. And this is never hold a door for somebody else. And I know that sounds a little extreme, but stay with me. All right. One sign of a weak person is someone who stops and opens or holds a door for someone else who's walking slower than you. Just keep moving no matter how close behind they are. Just like you, they have two hands and are fully capable of grabbing a door for themselves. In fact, if someone's behind you, speed up your pace so you get more distance between you. Another tip is slowing down so the person passes you. Keep your pace with them so when they open the door, you can pass right through it. It's that easy, guys. And this is an added extra. If you see a door that has the handicap accessible button, only hit it when you're by yourself. It's just so easy just to hit it. You go through it, no problem. If there are people around you, don't hit the button. Just open the door, go through it, and let them open the door. Again, never hold the door for somebody else. And that's my salty tip.
Damn, Matt. Like, you got to be that cruel to somebody? Come on.
Hey, they got two hands, John.
I understand. What if this woman is, let's say, a walker? Okay, you're like, okay, you got two hands for yourself. Go ahead and open that door for yourself.
I would point to the handicap button, and she can push it. That's what it's there for.
Yep. There's a reason why it's called salty tips, not actual life tips, okay?
This is correct.
So now we're going to be going into favorite costumes of all time. So, Matt, I'm going to say this. I feel like this list can go I don't know. I feel like it can go one way or the other. And I mean, and the reason why I say this is because a lot of costumes, whether it's, superhero movies, whether it's just regular movies in general, depending on what kind of costumes they're wearing, things like that, like it can all vary, right? And I think there's like certain criteria that it needs to have. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's certain pieces that need to like really fit well because like if it's a superhero movie, it really needs to follow the comics or books or whatever it may be, right? Because it needs to follow in line or in suit.
Yeah, and as we say, like best ever, I think what we're really talking about is like these are really our favorite, live action comic book, superhero type costumes.
That's why I said superhero mostly.
That we've seen on screen. But yes, like I think when we're talking in terms of costumes, we're looking for like what is like most accurate looking, feeling like it's not cheesy looking. It's like you're looking at the material. Like it's not like we're looking at spandex or like
No, yeah.
like they're wearing like a sweatsuit and you know like foam pieces for armor or something. Something like
No.
really stupid, cheap or whatever.
It's not like LARPing or, something like that, right? Because like
Yeah,
that's what it would remind me of. But yeah.
like something like Kick Ass.
Actually, ironically enough, that's actually what I was thinking at first because like I was like, at first I didn't mind it, but then I'm like, you're right. Like if we're looking at cheesiness and how it really is very basic,
Yeah.
it's a funny ass movie. It's one of my favorites, but you're right. I mean, for the costume concepts and different things, yeah, he's not even really a superhero. He's got two batons that he beats the shit out of people, but his real, we'll say in the second movie, like those are the ones that really do something about it. Like, but anyways,
Yeah,
it just depends on, which way you're looking at it. But like, will let you go first here, but I figured one of your favorite costumes, which I think we can agree to a point.
I think. I mean, this one. I think a lot of people can go back and forth. You know, with Batman, it's really one of those like it can go back and forth with who you choose. And I certainly went back and forth with which one I chose. But ultimately, I did go with Ben Affleck's version with the gray and black suit.
I mean, so when I look at Batman, right? So I mean, it really depends on which kind of version of him you're talking about. Like, if you're talking about a younger Batman, kind of like we'll say it is like 20s, 30s, somewhere like he's in his prime in a sense. For me, I would have to go. I know you're going to say this, and I know you're going to probably mention this too. I think more tactically, because Batman as a character is a very tactical person. That is his persona. That's what he likes to do. Things like that. I agree that like Christian Bale, okay, his Batman, his tacticalness in that sense, like yes, that would probably be, in my opinion, okay, just my opinion, not your opinion, would be probably the more accurate as in his prime, every day and age kind of a thing. That's what I would think of Batman if it was like more modern day today. Very tactful, very like, you know, the way he was always having his gadgets, things like that. Like that's how I would see him today. Right now, I know I understand you're not going to agree, but like Ben Affleck, his older version, right? Because he's playing an older Batman. He's more mature, more wise. That one, I can agree that yes, in a older version of himself, hands down, that's probably what I would see because it's more.
See, I mean, I look at what he looked like, what Batman looked like in the comic book, and I would picture, you know, the Ben Affleck version coming directly off the pages. And when I do look at Christian Bale's, like, yes, I would agree with you. In today's day and age, even, you look at Christian Bale's movies, the planning of him making the suit, trying to make it as lightweight as possible while still making the material strong.
Right.
Like that's what I would envision a real life Batman doing, not necessarily wearing cloth material as a suit when
Right.
you're going up against men with guns. You would need something very tactical, very lightweight.
Right. And I mean, like you look at now granted, I understand like, you look at let's say the Batmobile, right? Granted, the Batmobile in the Dark Knight trilogy, yeah, that is a very unique version of the Batmobile itself. But
Yes.
like if you're looking at some of the other aspects of it, right? So if you look at like Michael Keaton's Batmobile and stuff, like that's what I would think of the Batmobile looking like in the comic books coming out of the pages, things like that.
Right.
But that's where you have to kind of draw the line and what aspects of this. I understand we're talking about costumes. I'm just saying, but if you're looking at the overall persona and what is like more accurate for comic versus not, and this and that, you have to kind of pick and choose, and this is where it's hard. It's hard to get to that point.
It's tricky, and you have to also look at the time period and what was available
right during that time.
During that time period. And I don't know if Christian Bale's Batman was during that time period. Like, I don't know if I can answer that question if it was during the same time period as the, Batman comics were actually occurring, and if that same
Yeah.
material were actually, if that material was actually available.
I mean,
um
so like if you look at like let's say Michael Keaton, like Batman versus like let's say Christian Bale's. Okay, I would say Michael Keaton's Batman. If you were to base it on like a time era, I know we're saying, oh, it's the late '80s, early '90s. Okay, I get that. If we're looking at it like that, I'm looking at it more like he was kind of more based in an earlier time frame. I would say more like maybe 50s, 60s if I'm taking a guess, like with like kind of
I
that
would probably
Joker.
say probably early, like 40s.
Oh yeah, well, so that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
because if you look at Jack Nicholson playing Joker, like his gangster style, that is a more 40s, 50s kind of look. But that's what I'm saying. Like, even though it's made in the 80s, it doesn't mean that that was like that's what they're trying to portray
right.
back then. So Christian Bale, like his version, I would say is more. I mean, granted, I would say it's definitely more modern day. Like, you can't really say it's '90s because that's not what I would think. I would say it's more like where he was at. Like, that's what it would be today. Like, that's just how
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
see it. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like each Batman. Well, don't get me started. George Clooney and Val Kilmer. We're gonna toss them aside because I don't even want to talk about them.
They'll,
But
they'll, they'll, they'll be in next week's episode.
yeah,
I
I
can
know, I know.
guarantee you that
I
one.
just, but anyways, but like this is why it's hard. Like, because I know we're talking about even just one costume. It's very hard to pinpoint what the costume is because then like there's certain aspects of like let's say for this next one, okay? Because I know we'll kind of move forward here a little bit.
Well, I mean, for this
Oh,
one, I mean,
okay,
just
sorry.
to define, some different variations of each of the suits. So, a lot of the Tim Burton suits, the reason I didn't choose them is because they were very, I would say, rubbery, and that's why I really didn't choose them because one, they're not tactical, and where yes, they look good on screen, you have a Batman who can't really fight or move or turn his head. You know what I mean? Like that's a problem. It looks great, other than George Clooney, obviously with bat nipples. Um,
Yeah, no, I know
you
what you mean.
have Christian Bale's, who's obviously probably the most tactical, and Robert Pattinson's. Both of those are the most tactical. But Christian Bale, I have a serious problem with the cowl. Like I don't think his cowl looked the greatest.
Again, I'm not saying that everyone's because ultimately, like whoever, whether it's Batman or a different superhero, things like that, you could take literally pieces from all the different suits and then create like the ultimate costume.
Yeah.
Because that, depending on which variation you're looking at or whatever, superhero, whatever it is, you could take certain pieces. And you're right, I could take certain things from Michael Keaton, let's say Christian Bale, Robert Pattinson, Batfleck, right? So on and so forth, and just like combine them all and say, okay, here's the ultimate Bat costume.
I just think when you take a look at Ben's Batman outfit as a whole, his looks the most complete to me. To me,
Right, but that's why I'm saying I just if I'm looking more as a more mature Batman, has his stuff together, like he's been through the ringer, okay? Like he's not his
but
younger
even
self.
even if like a younger actor was wearing that same suit, it would still work. You know what I
No,
mean? It might
I'm
not
not
be
saying
it
that.
might not be exactly tactical, but if you were saying Ben Affleck 20 years ago was wearing the same suit, it would still work.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like it
But he
really
also had a
depends.
different you know, outfit, different thing that he was wearing to fight Superman.
No,
So
right.
it's entirely plausible that he has something more tactical that he just wasn't wearing for what we've seen him in, because Ben Affleck really hasn't had an opportunity to
You're right. Because
play a full Batman character in a full Batman movie.
right, because DC Elseworlds, baby.
Anyways, moving on to the next one.
So no, I'm actually gonna I'll throw a couple out there, but so one of my favorites, and we just talked about it actually before the episode, was I always it's very hard to pinpoint the specific costume because so Captain America, right? So I would say a majority of you,
Shocker.
oh, hello, no, okay, listen. Even Matt agreed with me; he had a good costume, but the thing is with me is it's very hard to kind of pinpoint like what variation, because like you kind of see over the years, like when he first started out, even till Endgame. Granted, his whole costume kept changing constantly. There was always different variations. There was always, signs of struggle because like once you saw, Infinity War, he didn't have the star on anymore. He grew his hair out. He had different things going on. So like, there's so many different variations. But like, I would say one of my favorites, which is really, it's a toss up because they're almost identical. I would say pretty close too, is Winter Soldier and Civil War, where those two movies, they didn't really have a whole lot of changes, but like that's where I see Captain America. Now, granted, if we're going old school Captain America, no, he's got his costume. Let's just say he's got two little wings on his actual mask, and then also on his feet, he's got two basically wings on them too. If we really wanted to go old school, it's also very pale blue, and it's okay. Now, if he wears that now, oh my god, I think he'd be a pansy. Like I just don't think it would look right. I think the way they did it now is more tactful. Like it's very, what he would be doing, right? And
Right.
his shield, right? Oh, dude, I mean, I can't even describe it. I mean, like, granted, back in the day, his shield was basically, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess it was just like almost like a weird circle triangle with basically like trident like tips, but basically it was like an American shield. It's hard to explain. It's not your circle shield that you see with Captain America. It was a different shield, but like, when he got the circle shield and he got all that, that was the symbol, right? Because like you look at, we even talked about this too a little bit, but like, Winter Soldier and Falcon, right? Like in that show, like, and they show the shield, like that was his symbol, like that was a sign of hope, and basically having some sort of like we're gonna kick some ass, or we're gonna get this going. But anyways, so when I look at Civil War and I look at Winter Soldier, I think like his costume just embodies the character, especially in the MCU wise, because like that to me, if you're looking back, I mean, like I said, if we're going back old school comics, no, it's not as completely accurate as it should be. But I think as a more modern Cap, because that's really what it was. Because back in the day, like, yeah, he kind of embodied that a little bit with his old school kind of costume. But I would say modern day, like, I think that would be what I would expect Cap to be if he jumped out of the pages, in my personal opinion, right? So he's, again, having, having his suit, it's not really rubbery, I would say. It's kind of the same thing as like Batman in itself, like having the,
It's like
like
fabric, a lot
and
of
certain things.
probably more like leather based.
Yeah, I would say leather. Yeah, I would. Well, and I know everyone's favorite thing, America's ass, baby. Like
Yeah.
no, but I'm only saying that because like, when you see him as a whole, and he's wearing the suit and he has a shield, like it's just. I always tell Matt, I said one of my favorite scenes, man. One of my favorite scenes of all time is literally an Endgame. Is when he was like, Avengers, assemble. And he just like, and everyone just starts coming out of nowhere. And again, all I'm saying is with Cap, his suit as a whole, especially in those movies, I think it just embodies the character a lot. It doesn't make it over dramatic. It doesn't really make it, not him. I think that's the key piece where this costume is very symbolic. It's very, very simple in a sense, but it's very tactful. It's very, it's not overdoing it. It's not like he's got like, wings or shit coming out of his, his suit and like helping him out or whatever. Like he's just a guy in a suit, right? It's just like, that's the whole, piece of it, just like Bat is, but yes, this next guy, Matt, which I could fully heartedly agree, this version is much better than his alternate version, I should say.
Yes, and his alternate version will be in next week's episode. And if you're curious on why we keep saying next week's episode, next week's episode is going to be the polar opposite of this episode, which is we're going to be talking about our least favorite live action costumes. But the next one is Deadpool, which is Ryan Reynolds. And if you remember back in the X-Men, I believe this is the Wolverine Origins.
Yes, it was the first time that Deadpool was ever shown on live action in this case.
And when this movie came out, like as soon as we saw him in this outfit, I mean, obviously it's 100% tactical. Like the swords on the back, like you see the costume, and I don't know how, you see the comic book representation, and obviously the what he wears over his head is more of a hood. I think
Right.
in the movie it's obviously not really a hood; it's more of like a leather mask.
Well, it's kind of like Spider-Man's in a sense, where he just kind of slips it on, and that's all
Right.
he really does with this one too.
Um, but the costume is very very good. Like it makes the character who he is. It's very tactical. It's very ninja like. It just makes Deadpool like who he is, and even down to like the little detail of where the hood like has
Oh,
that
that little point. It's that little point. Yeah,
that little tip of the hood, like yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Because yeah, even that in the comics is literally the same thing. I mean, when you look at this version of Deadpool, I mean, when I saw him in this, you're right. It's like if he jumped out of the pages. It's literally you couldn't get any closer. I think it's like if he was jumping out of the book and coming right at you. I mean, granted, when I look at Deadpool and I look at Ryan Reynolds playing this character, hands down, like there should
right.
not ever be another person. But like, when you look at, the swords, you're looking at, his guns that he has, because usually he does a Kimbo style. He just goes, or sometimes he'll have his guns, but mostly it's his katanas. But um, he, again, one of the very few, superheroes that also do the fourth wall. He's very few that ever do
Very
it, but
few,
like
yeah.
he, I think you're right. I think as a whole, I think this version of Deadpool and being portrayed, because like I said, if Fox kept it up, I mean, granted, yeah, we would probably see more raunchiness to a degree. This is why I'm hoping, guys. This is why I'm telling you right now. If Disney, I'm gonna say it, if they fuck up this next movie, oh my god, they're gonna get some shit because
I honestly don't think Ryan Reynolds would have done a Deadpool movie if they didn't allow him to do it the way
no, he did it previously.
I think he
yes.
would want it done. So I think we're probably going to get like a Deadpool movie that we would want to see and he would want to make, because I mean he's said clearly like I wouldn't want to make a Deadpool movie that's
Oh shit, I know.
yeah. So I mean, just knowing that like Hugh Jackman and like all these people like
Yeah, they're gonna come back and play. Yeah.
I mean, this might be. I mean, obviously it's not a spoiler because I have no idea what the movie's going to be about. But from what I'm understanding, John, is apparently Deadpool is supposed to be going to all these other X-Men or all these other characters, basically killing them off.
Oh, really?
That's from what I understood.
I mean, I'd be interesting to see because I'd love to see how he's going to beat Wolverine because they're literally identical.
There's scene. I mean, I've seen scenes of them like fighting together. So I don't know if they're like fighting. They're fighting each other, but I know that they're like kind of working together.
The problem is that when people say, "Oh, who's going to win in a fight, Deadpool or Wolverine?" The problem is they both have the same exact mutant gene where they basically can regenerate themselves, literally from a drop of blood, if need be. You know what I'm saying? The only difference
they could fight forever. So I don't know if there would ever be a victor.
Well, that's the problem. The only thing that, again, right now, I mean, granted, if you look at whatever Wolverine version we're looking at here, I don't know which one it is in this particular movie, but like if he has the adamantium, skeleton,
which
right?
I believe he does.
Okay, because like again, if we looked at the different timelines, which that's a whole nother story.
I think we're getting the regular version of Wolverine.
Well, that's good because the other one did not, technically, because they got rid of it. If we're looking at that alternate timeline version.
No, I think we're getting the regular version.
So like Wolverine. That would be his only advantage because the katanas aren't made out of adamantium.
No.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like you could only, if he's got claws, literally one of the strongest metals on the planet. Yeah, you're kind of screwed in that department. But I'm just saying, like that's where he would be kind of at a disadvantage for that piece of it. But again, I think with Deadpool, I think it's perfect. I would never want anyone else to play him, and I sure as shit if they ever changed anything about him, I think people would lose their minds.
Oh, they would definitely would. One of the questions that I kind of thought of, because there's a lot of, I mean, I know leather is one of those materials like that looks good on screen, but do you think that leather as a material hinders tactical performance?
Honestly, I do. I think if you
Because I mean, you look at Daredevil, you look at Deadpool,
yeah,
and a
well,
lot of other characters. I mean,
I think it constricts. I don't think it
their
actually.
characters like 100% of their costume is leather.
Well, Daredevil is 100% leather. Like there's no questions
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it. Deadpool has a little bit. I would say not his whole costume, but he has a little bit.
I mean, most of it's that same material.
Well, I mean to a degree, but I mean maybe it's more stretchier. I don't know what it is, but Daredevil was straight up 100%
Yeah.
leather, and Carmen Electra was another one. But there's just what I see as leather is yes, like those costumes. I don't think it really does anything. I think it just like you said, aesthetically it looks fine. It doesn't. It may look cool, it may look whatever, but I agree. I think if you're tactically think about it, that shit must squeak like a motherfucker. Like if you're walking, like you
Yeah.
think that's tactically sound? Like no, I would be like no. I in this case I would take like very light, like a I don't know, I wouldn't say cotton t-shirt, but like the silk kind of feeling a little
Can
bit.
you imagine how bad the inside of that
Oh shit, he'd
costume?
be chafing. He'll be oh my god. I mean, I wouldn't want to know. He'd be stinking. We just talked about this earlier about the Halo thing. I mean, shit, if you took off your costume and you only spent in it for 5 fucking weeks and you haven't taken a shower, ooh boy, I could only imagine.
That's going to be some awful smelling costumes. Might want to burn it.
So I will mention another one, which I'll mention before we go into Iron Man. Because this one I know you can. I'm actually going to have a question, and then we'll have a little discussion on it. But what do you think about Spider-Man? Which Spider-Man do you think had the best costume? If we were to choose out of the three,
I win. I mean, I go back and forth because I
'Cause-
like Tobey Maguire's.
right?
And
It's a
I,
classic
I,
look.
I like Tom Holland's.
I agree.
But I think I only like Tom Holland's because of his eyes.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's only because of like the mechanisms of what the eyes can do, like the opening and closing, and
Yeah.
the like what they can do.
Well, didn't Andrew Garfield's version like his eyes do kind of something
I
similar?
don't
to that?
remember if they did or not, but I do like how the spider looked on Tobey Maguire's. I liked how like the webbing was, more of a not like in the suit, but it was like, it was more of a texture,
Well, I mean, his actual webs were coming out of him.
Well, that's not what I meant. I mean,
No, I
like
know.
the webbing on the suit was, kind of
Yeah.
a rubbery.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked how the spider looked more, and I just liked the aesthetic of Tobey Maguire's.
I know it's a tough one. It's a really tough one because, like, when you look at all three, like they did their own versions very well, depending on which one you look at, or vice versa. But the reason why I asked this question is because it was hard for me because I was like, I always loved Spider Man. I remember growing up and watching him, and I agree that Tobey Maguire did an amazing job playing Spider Man. They were even talks about doing a fourth one, but then they canceled it. But like, I mean, shit, I could go on to like Venom and different characters like that they introduced over the years and whatnot. But I think that if we're looking at Spider Man, yes, I think of Tobey Maguire as like, of course, he was the right out of high school, going into college, kind of Spider Man kind of a deal in his suit and everything else. Like that was more the adult version. That's why Tom Holland, I think, for a lot of people, was like, Spider Man really was just a kid. He was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school, and like he then got his powers. So he was, you know what I mean? Like, so like you think of his costume in a sense,
Yeah.
and it's kind of, but I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to, you know what? Here's a better idea. Take Tobey Maguire's suit, the original suit that we just talked about, but then take Tom Holland's Iron Spider costume. Which one do you think?
I mean, it's different because I mean, if you're looking at, I mean, how many other than like Tom Holland's very first Spider-Man movie, like how long did Tom Holland actually have the atypical Spider-Man suit?
Well, that's the thing. If we're basing it, I would say Tobey Maguire had a old school look to his suit, right? Where Tom Holland has more of the, if I look at like the animated series of like cartoons and stuff like that that they came out with Spider-Man
Right.
and so forth. That's what I see with Tom Holland. Like he was more, like I said, he's more the modern kind of day, like that's what he would look like kind of a deal. Where Toby was kind of like the older,
I
old
could
school kind of look.
I could sign on to Tom Holland Spider-Man in Civil War.
Okay. So that's what I mean. So something, okay, so something like that with the eyes and everything else, but not the, let's say the Iron Spider.
I like the Iron Spider for what it is.
Okay.
But if I'm going classic Spider-Man, it's a for me it would be a toss up between Tobey Maguire and that Tom Holland like classic look.
So if you had to exclude the era of time, so excluding like if whether it's a modern day look or an old school look, if you had to choose one, like seriously had to like say that's it, this is the one I would always think of. Who do you think it would be?
For me, if I had to think of one,
If you were like that's it, that's my final decision.
Tobey Maguire all the time.
Okay. No, I get it because you grew up and you, well, I mean, granted, you were older and you've already, you were already an adult at that point, but yeah. Okay. So I would say, I'm going to go the opposite. I would say, I would say Tom Holland. And I only say this because,
I could see it. I mean,
you know what I mean? Because I only say this because
it's
like
a very
he's
very
more-
close second.
and I only say this because the reason Toby at the time, he was already well past his years in some degree. Like he was young enough, but he wasn't that young enough to play that role. Tom, on the other hand, with his costume and everything, at least he was close enough in age that I could see him, you know what I mean? Like that's why at first I didn't agree with Tom, but then I had to see him kind of do the role and kind of get into it more and more. Then I was like, all right, I can see him play, Spider-Man with the role, especially in Civil War. Like that kind of, that got me like, oh, okay, I see this now. I see where MCU was going with that role and how they were doing it. So again, I get where you're coming from. I'm just going to say, if we're basing it off of comic accuracy, kind of the age, kind of that, the look and everything, I'm going to go with Tom Holland. That's just me.
For me, it's a close second, but
I get it. And don't get me wrong. I love Tobey Maguire. I thought he was great in it. I was just, that was an interesting little kind of debate because, I was curious. It just depends.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about this guy.
So Iron Man, Tony Stark.
Good old Cap's buddy, always want to be rivals with each other. It's a great time.
So, I mean, very first thing I do have to say is, I mean, every single suit I think that Tony Stark makes is awesome. Like,
I mean, even his first suit, granted, it looked like a piece of shit, but like, it was impressive.
It actually is a piece of shit because it fell apart. But
no, I know, but it was impressive on how he literally took nothing and he built it. And granted, it ironically enough, like his original suit in the very first movie, like when he got out of the cave, that was accurate in comic books, if I'm not mistaken.
Right,
that
it is, yeah.
So like that was the interesting part about how they did that, and I was like, oh, well, that's actually pretty cool. But they also do, like that suit is kind of the same as what he kind of wears, old school wise,
right,
in a sense. So like that's where I think it's that. I wish I could speak today. I wish that they could have maybe done that a little bit more, and then maybe kind of jumped into what he was doing now, kind of a deal. But like.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the newer, I mean, beyond like, once you get beyond like Mark IV, I think, some of those other ones like Mark V and some of those beyond, the nanotech ones are different, obviously. But, the original comic book, I think, looking one was more just red and yellow,
Yeah.
And obviously that looks weird on screen. Just to do red and yellow. That's why they went gold.
Well, that's the thing. I think for them, if like like his suit was originally like a little bit brighter red, but like a really mustard yellow. Like it
Right.
was a mustard yellow. It look, you're right. I think it would look extremely weird if they didn't do that,
Right.
make that little minor change. But like, I agree that Mark III, if that's like you're right, that's the most at least iconic suit that he's ever had. Because like once you get into the nanotech one and
Yeah, and I
the ones
think
above, yeah,
it's obvious. Mark III for me is the one I'm choosing, but Mark IV obviously is a close runner up. Mark IV is just an upgrade. Like it just changes the kind of the sleekness of it. Um, but it's those two are the closest comic book representations, and they looked the best. Like I said, Mark IV is just kind of it looked like the legs look sleeker. Um,
yeah,
in
I had to take a look at it. Yeah,
in the shoulders, I think it's a little bit different, but the two suits are very very similar in nature. But those two are the ones that kind of stand out as like the best looking.
I'm looking at both, and I'll show this in a second because I had to take a look at it again because it has been a while. I honestly want to say, Mark IV is probably just a slight bit more accurate because I'm looking at it now. I mean, you could take a look at it yourself too. That I saw the link, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
if I'm taking a look, I mean, you're right. It's
they're
very close
they're
in.
very very close. Like it's the shoulders are a little bit different. When you look at the legs, they're a little bit sleeker in the way that they look. You look at even Mark V and the ones after that, like the suit just gets more sleeker and more, slimmer and even better as they go on. But, Mark III and Mark IV, even though they do look slightly different, and Mark IV, obviously, yes, it's an upgrade. So it does look a little bit better, a little bit closer. Um, it it looks the closest to what was represented in the comic books to me.
So let's see. I will have to go. So I know we were talking about superheroes, right? That this is what we're talking about, correct? We're just only talking about superheroes.
You can talk about villains, doesn't
Okay.
matter.
All right. Well, I'm gonna throw one out. Okay. I'm gonna go Magneto.
Which one?
I was gonna go with Old Man Magneto.
Okay.
No, see, I have a strange feeling you got something to say because your face is a whole lot right now. That is a smirk and a half. You know what, Matt? Before I go on, I want to hear your opinion real quick.
No.
No. I want to hear.
You finish your thought on why
Oh,
you're choosing Old Man Magneto.
Okay, you know what? No.
I
want to retract my
you're
statement. I want to retract
picking-
my statement. No.
You're picking this character, so go for it.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to retract. I'm not going to go with Old Man Magneto. I'm going to go with the newer Eric Bassfender version. Okay. So the reason why I like Magneto's suit is it's his, like in the comic book version of it, it's very sleek. I mean, he's got the helmet, he's got, the cape, again, he's got, his simple designs of like the red, purple, again, has the ability to, control magnetism and things like that. So again, one of the most powerful, let's say villains in that kind of, sense of it. But like a reason why I want to retract my statement on the Old Man is I'm not saying that I did not like, in the Fox version of X-Men that I thought he did very well, and I thought his version, his suit and stuff was good. Because the problem is Magneto is always, it's tough because like in the comics, like he's portrayed as this older, man, like he's
Right.
really in his, like, I'd say 60s ish, right? Because like Professor X is probably either the same. He's probably 50s, 60s in that general sense, right? So he's an older man, right? So like in the sense of like, oh, like if we're talking like age wise, yes, I would say, you know, I can't. What who played him? I can't remember. I know I'm going to sound really stupid, but I'm trying. I know he played in. It was Gandalf, for God's sakes. Well, what's his name, Matt? Come on, help me out of here. I don't want to look like an idiot.
Ian McKellen.
Thank you, Ian McKellen. For the life of me, I couldn't remember, and I feel so stupid for not remembering. So Ian McKellen, yes, great actor. I thought he was great in the original
Michael
series.
Fassbender was the other
Was
one.
it Michael? I thought it was Eric. My bad. Oh, I was close. Okay, my bad. But anyways, Michael Fassbender, I think he just did a phenomenal job. I think his suit was really well done, villain wise. You know, I just think as a character and how they've been both portrayed, I think it's a toss up because Ian McKellen did a really good job as Magneto. In the very early on kind of ways, but like it's tough because like Michael Fassbender, granted in like the newer like the X-Men First Class and like, so on and so forth. Like he embodied the character. I mean, granted, he didn't always have the suit. I get that, but like I think persona wise, I think he just did a personally better job of playing Magneto because I think with the original X-Men series, for Fox, like they just he almost was a little too weak. In my opinion, like he was more softer, especially like later years. I think with the Michael Fassbender, if you're taking a look at it, like I think he just did a better job with his. And again, like the costume, and if I'm looking at it, like I would say his suit would probably be a better version in some regards. I would say that Ian McKellen's version in his actual suit, I think his helmet probably maybe, if I'm not mistaken, is more portrayed in the comic books a little bit better. But I get it. It's been a while since I've seen some of this. Now go ahead, Matt, because I know you got some stuff to say.
Yeah, I mean, looking at pictures of both.
Again, I'm not even looking at it. You're looking at it now.
Looking at both pictures, it's tricky because you're looking at both, Michael and Ian in both of the roles, and yeah, like I don't think they wear the outfit the whole entire time, and I think most of the movies you see, the older X-Men movies, he's Ian McKellen as Magneto is only wearing really just the cape and the helmet.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
And he's wearing like a black suit, like a regular, like tuxedo type suit.
Right. Where I think with Michael Fassbender, if I'm not mistaken, I thought he was wearing the whole suit.
At times, because I mean, most of the time, like sometimes when you see him, like half the time he didn't even want to really be Magneto.
I mean, it's true, but when he put on the suit, though, I mean, he did actually look the part. That was the thing.
Yeah, and I think for the both of them, I mean, it's really one of those things that's like it's a toss up because when you do look at photos of either of them, one, Ian McKellen does kind of look weird with the helmet on. I'm not gonna lie.
No, but I was just saying, like, if we're basing it off like the helmet alone, I think if I'm not mistaken, his helmet is probably more accurate. That's why I'm saying I haven't looked at it, so it's been a while since I've seen what it looks like versus what Michael Fassbender's helmet looks like. Comic book wise, as close as
I mean, they've had several different helmets, so I mean, it's hard to really picture, one helmet over another because each movie and each movie they had a different helmet. Each X-Men movie they had a different helmet. Each movie that Michael Fassbender was Magneto, there was a different helmet.
I didn't think there was that many helmets. I thought it was just.
Oh yeah, I mean every picture I'm looking at, there's a different helmet. I mean this one's silver, this one's not silver. It's like it's just really weird.
Yeah. Okay, maybe Magneto was a bad decision on my part.
but you're looking at Michael Fassbender, and he does have more of like that purplish looking suit. Where you look at, you know, Ian McKellen, and he's got more of like just kind of like
Yeah.
that black kind of
Yeah.
outfit. So if you're looking like more comic book accurate, I probably would lean more towards Michael Fassbender only because, especially in was it Apocalypse?
I think it was I think that maybe that's where I was thinking.
I think that one is when he I think had more of the iconic suit
Yeah.
where you could say, was it comic book accurate? No, but
It's probably as close as you're going to get.
it's probably as close as you're gonna get to a Magneto outfit. I mean, it's definitely more superhero tactical.
Well,
like
because his original suit was like it was basically
like tights and a
well
underwear thing,
but
and
I would say it was like well I'm not going to mention his name, but like it was kind of like an armor in a sense. Like it was it was kind of that rubbery. If I'm going to take a guess, it was probably either leather or something like that.
that.
Yeah, okay, well that's what I'm saying. But then right, he has a cape. He has a giant cape, and he's got a helmet on. So I mean,
It's
wearing
like,
spandex basically.
it's like spandex with underwear outside, and
that is a '60s look, though. That is a common.
well,
That's tip. You can't tell me I'm wrong.
that's weird. That's a weird look.
I mean, it is a weird look, but that was just okay. It's just like looks like friggin' Robin. Then, if that's the case, Robin didn't. His suit didn't even make any sense to begin with. But I'm not going to go there.
His suit made sense for Batman.
Oh, all right, moving on because clearly I think I chose a wrong person on this one. But go ahead, man. You go ahead and talk about this one.
So I originally was going to go with Hellboy, but I decided to change gears because I do absolutely love this character. And even though, one would argue that basically this character is just kind of goth with a, kind of a clown face, I still very much love this character. And this character is Eric Draven the Crow, which was played by Brandon Lee, which he was the very first iteration of the character.
Who was Bruce Lee's son? Just saying.
That is correct. And like I said, even though the overall look of the costume is very basic, like in the way that it looks, it's it's kind of that very classic goth look with the white face and the black kind of jester-ish makeup.
I think what they should have done, since I had to look this up because I didn't know, I think they should have just not created any of those movies that we talked about. And I think the problem is that if, unfortunately, yes, Brandon Lee died during this movie. That was part of the kind of, wouldn't say the cult theory behind it, but it was like there's a reason why it's been a cult following for a long time. But if he was to play, if he was to do the sequels and stuff, I think it would have been different. I think it probably would have been much better. It could have done it really well. But because they had different variations or whatever, it's very hard to reenact that. So like I think they should have never done the other two. And I mean, granted, now they're
City of Angels wasn't terrible, but it wasn't a great movie either. But I mean, obviously Brandon Lee really did embody the character and really, he really did a great job as the character.
Well, I mean, now, because I didn't know that they were basically rebooting said movie in a sense.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, it'll be interesting.
I'm actually very excited because Bill Skarsgård is supposed to be playing the character of Eric Draven.
The only reason why I don't know is like, because I'm not saying he's not a good actor. I get it. He embodies characters like, again, Pennywise, prime example. I get that he does that. I think there are certain actors that you really just have to see how well they can fit the bill. You know what I mean? Because like you may look at them and be like, I don't know about that. But then I have to see them like in the full costume, like really embodying the character, doing all that. Because like we even talked about what was it, Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat? Like they're who was it? Oh, was it a movie we were talking about? Oh, that's right. Yes, it was the sequel to the newer Mortal Kombat. But like my point is like we were talking about how the different characters for those people are. all I'm saying for this is like I really need to see this person in this role to really.
I mean,
affirm
I
that.
definitely think he can pull it off, and I mean, he definitely is a character driven actor. Like it's different if he was like, if he was just playing like a detective.
Well,
You know what I mean?
get that. Yeah.
It would be really tough to say like, oh yeah, he's gonna really nail that role. But you know, it's definitely a benefit. Like I don't know if it's just the last name or if it's the upbringing, but his family just can act the shit out of movies. Like,
Oh no, I mean his dad alone was it was literally in all mostly in all pretty much all of the Thor movies for God's
well, and
sakes.
his
For
older brother too can
oh yeah, no no
is a
no.
really great actor too.
I know that yes, all of them they know how to act. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. It's just
But I mean, in the movie, I mean, he's if you haven't seen the movie, then you're clearly living under a rock or something. Um,
wow, Matt.
but the movie's been out for a long, long time, and the character basically is this kind of rocker character, and he is living with his, I believe, girlfriend.
Hmm.
I don't think they're married.
Sure, we'll go with girlfriend.
And they have a kid, and this gang of guys come in and basically like rape and kill her. They kill the kid, and they almost kill him. And well, actually, I believe they do because he dies, and then the crow brings him
Mm,
back to life.
I see.
And then that's basically what the gist of the comic book is. Like the crow brings the person kind of back to get justice on the people that did them wrong.
So it almost sounds like a John Wick Punisher, but back in the day. If I'm gonna take like two, kind of comic book kind of, superheroes in a sense, like you combine the two, but the only difference is yes, the Crow's bringing him back to life because both of them are clearly are still alive and they're not, dead. But like those kind of concepts kind of bring that into play for me, anyways.
Well, I mean, it's similar to that, but I mean, there is like the crow definitely has in like abilities. Like he can't die, and I don't know if there's like I mean I don't know if there's so much of a super strength or anything like that. Um, but there are abilities like that he can kind of see through the crow and
Hmm.
do certain there are certain other abilities, but it is such a great movie, and it'll be good to see like how the new take on this story is with Bill Skarsgård. So looking
Yeah.
forward to that.
I mean, I guess we'll have to find out and see. Let's see how well he does.
Yeah.
All right. I don't got any more, Matt. So we're gonna just finish this off with this next.
This one comes from an awful, god awful, terrible freaking movie, and
Yes.
and the rest of the characters are god awful, terrible. But this one is somewhat somewhat I'll say somewhat redeemable.
Somewhat.
In appearance, he's redeemable.
So yes, and we're gonna be talking about George Clooney's, Batman and Robin, because good old Bane, I tell you.
Good old Bane from Batman and Robin. While the characterization was not great, the costume I think was probably, if you're gonna play a Bane character, I think was probably the most accurate we've seen in live action.
I would say yes, because like you look at the Dark Knight trilogy, right, and you look at Tom Hardy's version. I mean, granted, the only thing that's most iconic about it is his voice. Hello there. Like when he does that. I mean, other than that, there's not really much going on there.
Though, this is the one thing that really bothers me.
He's like, this is what grinds my gears, boys and girls.
The one thing that grinds my gears about a character that is supposed to be so menacing as Bane has such a pussy ass voice as him in that movie.
Really, Tom Hardy? Wow. Okay.
You're talking about a guy who kills people and breaks Batman's back, and he talks a lot like this. Like
No, I mean,
He's
like
like
I said,
he's like the Hoppington Fair guy.
no, he's like, "Hello there, Batman," and he kind of goes, "Hello," but like I said, there. I mean, the
I
only
would expect him to talk like a wrestler, dude. Like that's what I would expect to hear from his voice.
no, I never understood the "Hello there, Batman," and it's like the where, the like piece of it, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what is going on here? Like, what am I looking at? Because I agree, because that vein was very. I- He's not big. He's a normal sized
it's
human.
almost like he's being really polite.
I mean, granted, the only thing that they did do accurately, I mean, granted, he did technically in that movie break Batman's back, which is surprising, but
He did, and what he was doing in the movie was very menacing and very Bane like.
right, but like,
But then every time he went to talk, it was like,
hello there,
"Hello
Batman."
there."
Sorry, I'll do it. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's okay.
But I mean, that's maybe
I know.
another conversation for another day. But that always, I mean, that one thing about the movie always like drives me nuts. Like you have a character who is so badass looking, who's doing badass things. That would be like watching John Wick
Yep.
and having, as soon as he opens his mouth, "Hi guys, how's it going?" Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
I'd be like, hey, Alvin and the Chipmunks called. They need their voice back. But that's just me.
You would not take him serious the whole movie.
No, you're right. I wouldn't. And I agree that this Bane is very comic book accurate, because you're right, with the button, with the chemical injection that he's like basically building himself up. Yes, the actual person that is portrayed to him, and like before he goes into this process, no, he does not. I mean, that's the problem though, because technically Bane in the original comic books, you'll never see him as a small scrawny dude. You always see him
Right.
as this huge dude, so you really don't know what he looks like. That's the difference, which is interesting. But like, it's also interesting because like, which this one it's hard because like Bane is actually his own boss in some points of the comics, because like, yes, was he originally with Poison Ivy and kind of helping her out? Yeah. But
Yeah.
then he eventually goes and becomes his own boss. But it's ironic though, is like in the comics, isn't he technically,
He's a genius.
no, I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying like, is he Hispanic, if I'm not mistaken?
I couldn't speak to whether
Well,
he was Hispanic
Because
or
I don't know what
Puerto Rican.
No,
I have no
I
idea.
the only reason why I was asking is because like he kind of gets involved with like the cartel and stuff like that. So that's the reason
Yeah.
why I was asking, because I believe I thought he was Hispanic, but like I don't know. But like that's not the point here. The point is like you're looking at him as a character in this movie. Yeah, granted he's a dummy. Like he's a straight
Yeah,
up dummy.
he's a straight up brute. No brains, just brawn. And comic book wise, he was a smart guy. He like
Yeah.
genius level
Level.
thinker.
And he could speak sentences. He was fine. He could he
Right.
do
And
all this
anytime
shit.
he needed just a little bit more brawn, he would just hit that button and
be ready to go.
it would be like Hulk smash and he would go to town. But
But I agree. I think in this movie, as close as, granted, this was back in the 90s, is with the technology that they had, I think that's as close as you're going to get to probably now. I mean, if they could make something similar to that nowadays, God, that would be extreme. I could tell you that
and that would be
CGI
I mean,
and a half.
You could probably do that now, and you would have to kind of do what they did with Chris Evans,
Yeah,
and doing the smaller character,
and then
having him hit the button, and then all of a sudden, like kind of hulks up like the Hulk would.
yeah. So I mean, granted, it would be CGI. There is no doubt about it.
Oh yeah,
because you're not going to
you
be able
would
to do that.
100% have to do CGI, but it would be really cool to see that kind of like little scrawny guy.
And it gets all veiny and he's like popping out and like he's just like, okay, ready, let's go. And you're like, because I'd actually be curious. I mean, this might be for another day, but like, that's tough. I mean, granted, I'm always going to say Hulk's going to probably win, but like Hulk versus Bane, I'm going to assume the Hulk in this case. But
Hulk, I think, probably would just rip his arms
that's
off. and call
probably
it a
true.
day.
And yeah, because the chemical ain't going to last that long. But I mean, guys, unfortunately, when it comes to best costumes, right, we're just saying what we thought, different characteristics, different things like that. Of course, there's many costumes that could be in this category. you know, and
Right,
there's
and these are just opinions, and I mean, it's kind of like we always kind of run the same problem with opinions. They're like assholes. Everyone's got one, right?
right. The problem is like I said. Now, granted, I maybe I should have maybe waited till next week to probably say I should have put probably Magneto's costume in the next week's one because I don't know. I think you know what. Maybe before I go, I will give one more. I will say, you know what? I'm gonna scratch Magneto. I'm gonna get rid of him. He's not even in my thought anymore. Okay, so he's
All right,
gonna probably be in next week. But hold
we've
on,
redacted, so it's all we're blacking out.
we're blacking this out, guys.
Yeah,
It's
now
like the
black.
government. Okay, we just black everything out.
We've
Nothing
redacted.
exists. Okay, so
Top secret.
top secret. Don't worry about it. Secret squirrel. So for me, I think. You know what? I'm just because we redacted it, we're doing that, and I'm gonna do a redeemable one. Okay, someone that Matt has been a huge fan of ever since.
You better be right about this.
I'm 100% right, and it is Marvel related,
Okay.
and it's our boy who has not been redeemed in the cinematic wise. Okay. You know who I'm talking about. You better bring his name up. We just talked about him, Matt. Come on. What was his name?
No idea who you're talking about.
Are you shitting me?
Nope.
Hulk smash?
Well, I know Hulk hasn't been redeemed at all.
But that's what I'm saying. You were like, really?
I'm curious on what Hulk you're referring to.
Oh. No, hold on. See, no. See,
there has been several.
I know. So this is why I said this is going to be a more interesting one. So it is a very tough one because if we're if we're going to base off of comic book appearance, because we're going to exclude powers because we have talked about powers and
right.
stuff.
We've talked about
if we're basing it off of appearance of what he actually should look like. This is where I feel like Matt's going to beat me up no matter which fucking answer I choose here, but I would. It's really a toss up, and I'm going to say it. I honestly like if we're basing it off of like height and like things like that, I'm probably going to have to go with Eric Bana. And this is where your face just said, okay, you know what? Then I want you to tell me who you thought would be more comic book accurate wise would be. Because it's not Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo, to a degree, maybe here and there, but like, I
think if you're looking at overall
look, overall look, okay.
If you're looking overall look, it's Mark Ruffalo. But if with Eric Bana, I could never get over the face. That's just me.
But I'm thinking more. I was surprised that you said Mark Ruffalo, and I only say this because
I think if you're like I said, if you're just going overall look, you're looking at what his face looks like with the body and the whole look. I mean, Mark Ruffalo's is the one that more closely matches everything.
I mean, but I was also thinking more like.
And I know where you're going with, like, because, yes, Eric Bana's version of the Hulk, yes, the angrier he got, the bigger he got. Like, so you have that aspect of, like, yes, he got angrier, he got bigger.
He's also taller, like, because he was much more taller than Mark Ruffalo's version would ever be. Right. Because he only got to that height and that was it. Like, he would never get any bigger than that.
But the only thing that I could never get beyond was, they actually just. The face that they put on that Hulk was Eric Bana's, and it just for me it just wasn't it wasn't a good match for the face. But
I agree.
I mean, it definitely was a lot closer than Edward Norton's, and I wish we could probably just erase that one.
Oh, I wish we could too, buddy. I really wish.
But I do. I mean, I would agree with you that one is probably. I mean, as far as comic book accuracy, yes.
That's why I'm saying it's very hard to kind of narrow it down because, like, I would say Eric Bana when it came to like comic book wise, like the angry he got, that kind of stuff. that's kind of where I was leaning more towards. I agree with you with Mark Ruffalo being kind of that more overall kind of appearance. Like if they took Mark Ruffalo and they took that same concept of Eric Bana and put it into him, then it would have been made a hell of a lot more sense. And I would have said Mark Ruffalo all day long, no problem. I also wish they would have done more movies with Mark Ruffalo, but let's not go there. But
yes, I would 100% agree if they took Mark Ruffalo's Hulk and gave it the treatment of Eric Bana's Hulk. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and then Edward Norton hopefully would never existed. But but like that's the thing. It's like if like kind of what I said earlier, you can take certain pieces of all the different costumes or different, let's say characters or versions of different, actors and actresses playing them and literally make the ultimate costume and make it like the best version of that character. The problem is like that's the reason why it's so hard to narrow down that one, like that's it, man. Like that's who it's gonna be. Deadpool out of the list is probably as close as you're gonna get to like perfection. Because that is the only one that I knew that truly is like that's the ball, like that's what it is.
I mean, Iron Man 2 is.
That's true.
Deadpool and Iron Man are probably. I mean, as far as this list is probably the closest
you're gonna get.
You're gonna get to.
I mean, you're lucky I didn't even mention a Wolverine because I could have easily mentioned him too.
Well, I mean, he's never had a comic book accurate costume.
That's true, but technically, because he actually would have been like 5'4", 5'5", he would have been a short dude, not somebody who's like 6'3".
Yeah.
If we're going to get that technical. But anyways, guys, we've talked about a lot about superheroes today. Next week, we're going to be talking, again, a lot of more superhero stuff, but the worst costumes. We're talking the ugliest. We're talking the dirtiest. We're talking whatever it looks like, man. It is disgusting.
Little Green Lantern,
Oh, DC Elseworlds, baby. Ugh. Anyways, guys, we appreciate you. We appreciate all the love and support. Again, always try to click that follow and that like button. And I tell you what, all the Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. I mean, I understand our Facebook isn't doing so well, but like even the Instagram and TikTok, man, start sharing it out, whatever you got. I mean, we just love that support. But anyways, guys, until next time,
stay geeky.